Jackie, what do you get when you cross Pan's Labyrinth and Infinity Blade?
You know what you get?
That
the Dark Meadow.
The Dark Meadow, new iOS game. Actually, it's been out for a while on iOS, but they just released a free version called Dark Meadow: The Pact.
Right.
They're essentially the same game. We're going to focus more on the paid version, but just to let you know, there's a free version out there, and we'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, like I was saying, it feels a lot like Infinity Blade.
That's a very good, accurate description of kind of like the overall feel of it. It was like Pan's Labyrinth with Infinity Blade and some other things thrown in there.
If you haven't seen Pan's Labyrinth, so it's kind of this dark fairy tale kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we mentioned that because a lot of the enemies in the game have these crazy, like animal skull helmets.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of like one looked like a manta ray, like they look kind of like fishy, but not amphibious kind of thing. They're really interesting, and obviously, if you have seen Pan's Labyrinth, you'll totally get it.
So gameplay, and this is basically it's a role-playing game.
Right.
You're walking around, you're trying to discover things, you're picking up money, and random encounter. You come across enemies that just kind of appear, and it steals focus from you, and you have to deal with them. You start with a bow and arrow, a crossbow basically, which is rad. I love aiming for those headshots.
Right, exactly.
And once they get close enough, you've got your melee weapon.
Yeah. So the only weapons in the game are crossbows that get crazy enhanced, or your melee, which is a sword, or some other things. There's a corn dog.
There's a corn dog.
For some reason, I'm sure it's explained when you get later into the story. But
speaking of explaining things, so when you first start the game, you wake up in what's called the Montclair Hospital, and you're told this by this guy Finney.
Dude in a wheelchair.
Dude in a wheelchair, who you see once very briefly, and then he becomes sort of this voice of God, sort of in the same fashion as Portal or Bioshock. You've got this main character who you rarely see that's explaining things, and I forget who the actor is, but the guy playing Finney is actually pretty cool.
It sounds excellent.
Yeah,
it's very similar in the same kind of tone as Andrew Ryan from Bioshock, which is that creepy but kind of comforting, kind of directing you. But
and I gotta say that I think this is what I really loved about the game. It really. So like you mentioned before, these are console developers that came over to iOS as their first iOS game. And I really feel like iOS games are growing up.
Oh, absolutely.
This is a great example of it. It feels console-ish. It still feels a little on rails.
Right.
But you're not, there's no on-screen buttons. They're making use of the slashing on the screen for the fighting mechanics.
I think it's a really good combination of, just when you're playing a console game, obviously you have complete control over where you're going and what you're looking at and how close you are to the object. But it's kind of hard to, do those exact same full control with iOS controls. So this one I think does a really good job at, it's sort of like, a more manual on rails. Like you're not being forced to a different area, but you have specific locations that you can get to by just, tapping, or like you said, the random encounters, it automatically aims you where you need to be shooting. And
it doesn't hurt that this is built on the Unreal 3 engine. So.
Does not hurt one bit. It is very hauntingly beautiful, if you want to. I mean, it looks excellent, obviously.
So this is on iOS. It's coming out later this month on Tegra 3 devices for Android. At least they're saying that. But let's talk about the free version real quick. There's a lot of, I didn't spend too much time because I did the immediate upgrade, but the complaints that I'm hearing is that it's so difficult initially that it forces you to pay for upgrades. So you kind of might as well just buy.
I think that's what it seems like, is they, Phosphorus kind of made it clear that like it is worth paying the $5.99 for the full version.
Update for the full version, Retina 3 support. iPad 3 Retina screen support. So it looks fantastic. I love it immediately. I mean, it's great gameplay. If you like Infinity Blade, it's sort of this that you're going to be very familiar with the fighting style.
So you've been playing on an iPad.
Yes, we should talk about that.
Right, so I've been playing on my iPhone, which I did have some complaints about. In the beginning, you have this kind of sort of elaborate cutscene to explain, where you are and what's going on. And on the iPhone, I felt it kind of lacked details that you needed.
Yeah, you're complaining like, I don't know where I am.
I was I just keep seeing a building.
Just look at the map.
Yeah.
And the map is so small on the iPhone.
It's really, and you can't zoom in, which is kind of a problem. I think they can, maybe add that to one of their newer upgrades, who knows. But on the plus side, all of that stuff is on the website. So if you want to, you can see a more detailed version of the map. But I think it definitely, from the little bit that I've seen, shines more on the iPad.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
iPad, if you have an iPhone, I think it still works.
Oh yeah, definitely, it does still work.
But download for sure.
Definitely. Get the paid version too.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.